Good morning, everyone, from beautiful Lille here in France. Welcome to the final Q&A session on the third call for proposals at Interreg Europe. My name is Anna Sladic. I'm the audit officer here at Interreg Europe, and today I'm going to be your host. So welcome everyone. This session is all about you, for you, project applicants. We're going to answer all of your questions on project finance, budget, applications, partnership, and so on. So the session is going to be divided into two parts. First part, we're going to answer all of your questions, and the second part is the assistance. We're going to use Slido and Slido only for the questions. So please, you can access Slido either via the QR code, or you go to www.slido.com and just enter #3rdcallquestions, and you will be able to post your questions on the board. There will be a Slido team helping behind the scenes with the questions. Just a little bit of a reminder on the third call, the timing. It opened on the 20th of March, and it's going to be closed next Friday, 7th of June at noon, Central European Paris time. So please be reminded to submit your applications before the deadline. And the decision is going to be made at the end of 2024. Everything you need to know about the project, about the call, is available on the program website. The link is at the bottom of the slide of the page. The session is going to be recorded, and the recording is going to be available afterwards on our website, so you don't need to take any notes. And now, before we kick off with the session, I would like to introduce you to my colleagues. My dear colleague Camille, finance officer, who is going to answer all of your questions on budget, and my dear colleague Kristaps, who is going to answer all of the questions on the project partnership and the policy. Hello, Camille. Hello, Kristaps.
Hello.
Good morning.
Okay, so we are ready to take off. So the first question is from Apostolos, and he's asking, is it possible to have an e-signed declaration, or should we aim for the traditional one? So Camille, can you please take over the question?
Sure. Yes, electronic signatures can be accepted. As you know, partner declarations must be signed. And as stated in the program manual, electronic signatures are accepted if there is an evidence of this electronic signature provided. So usually it's a certificate included in the PDF document. If it's not possible to supply this certificate, then you need to provide evidence that the document was signed. But on this, I recommend you to check the information provided in the program manual in section 4.2. But yes, to answer very clearly your question, electronic signatures are accepted.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Thank you, Camille. So the next question comes from Asiliki, and it says, considering the limits of 5 to 16 partners from 5 to 8 regions and no more than one region involved per country, is there a limit to the number of partners per region? For example, 12 partners from one region country, or 4 partners by 4 different regions country. So Kristaps, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, and thank you, Vasiliki, for this question. And there's probably two things I would like to answer here. And we have a lot of questions on the partnership in this Q&A session. So first of all, if I look at this particular case, we see that this is not completely balanced partnership at all, because having 12 partners from one country, one region, and then 4 partners from other countries, it's not balanced at all, and this would not really pass the assessment criteria when we really look at the balanced partnership. That's the third first thing I have to even would like to add, that when we look in a quality assessment on a partnership and we see that at least if 80% of the partners are coming from the same even transnational area, for example, Interreg Med, it's also a knockout criteria, so you get 0 points in that. And I presume if you have 12 partners from one country, it could be basically this case. So this would not count at the balanced partnership, and this is something that we would not like to see, having 12 partners from one country and then a much smaller number from other countries. First part of answer. Then the second part, can you have more than one partner coming from the one region? Yes, you can. In many cases, we have 2 partners coming from the same region addressing the same policy instrument, let's say the managing authority of the policy instrument, together with maybe university or maybe the cluster organization or maybe a different municipality, for example, that's not directly in charge, but they're both policy relevant organizations for this particular policy instrument. So you can have this case. Normally it's one partner or let's say 2 partners from the same region. But what we really do not advise is to have more than one region from the same country. Again, we want to see balanced partnerships. We want to see exchange of experience between different countries, different regions, so not exchange of experience between several regions in one country. Yes, this is a bit long answer to a long question, but I hope the core principles were clear for you.
Thank you, Kristaps, for this elaborate answer on the regions. So another question coming from Gemma. Is there any limitation for discovery partners having an ordinary involvement in projects in terms of participation in all the project activities and even addressing a policy instrument if agreed? And with regard to their budget, is there any limit? Yeah, so can you please, Kristaps, answer the first part of the question and Camille the second part?
Yes, surely. Again, maybe there has been a bit of confusion regarding what the role of a discovery partner is here, because you can have discovery partners coming from the new countries, and you can also have normal partners. So as an ordinary normal partner, you are supposed to address a policy instrument, either as a managing authority or you are involving managing authority with the policy instrument as a associated policy authority. In case of a discovery partner, the involvement is much lighter. Really, the aim of being a discovery partner is to learn, is to participate in most project activities, interregional meetings, etc., to learn about the program, learn about the process, learn about the project, learn about experiences, but there is no need to address policy instrument. If a partner wants to address the policy instrument, be, let's say, an ordinary partner, then they should come as a normal partner, addressing the policy instrument, being either the policy managing authority or confirm the relevance and bring in the managing authority as a associated policy authority. So it's a bit of having a cake and not eating it at the same time if you want to mix. So just to simplify, please note that the discovery partner role is very light compared to normal partners. Discovery partners are there to build their capacity, to learn about the program, learn about the projects, learn about how this whole thing works, dispute exchange, but they are not there to address the policy instrument. If they want to do it, then they should come as a normal partner and just work like everybody else. And maybe you want to take the budget part.
Yeah, just to complete regarding the second part of the question with regard to their budget, is there any limit? I think to answer this question, it's important to go back to what Kristaps was just saying. It really depends on the involvement of the partner and the type of activities this partner will be in charge of and will implement. So this is the basis to define the budget of any partner, really, the role of this partner and their activities in the project. So as Kristaps was saying, discovery partners have a lighter involvement, and this should obviously be reflected in the budget. This being said, there is no specific limit because any budget needs to be a good fit for each partner organization based on the price level in the country, based on the involvement in the activities. So there is no limit as such, but of course, the most important for us and also for you is that the budget reflects well the involvement and the activities this partner will be in charge of.
Thank you both. And now a question from Helena. We have a partnership of 10 organizations from 4 different countries. The partner from Austria, the only one, is not responsible for policy and cannot include a policy institution. Can that organization be a partner in a project like a regular partner, but not address any policy instrument? Kristaps, I'll hand over to you.
Yes. Unless this particular partner from Austria is coming to the partnership as an advisory partner, so having an advisory role, either this is a university or research institute with some specific knowledge advising the whole partnership. Unless they have this role, they cannot actually be involved in the project because they have to be either the policy responsible authority or they have to be policy relevant, and then they have to involve the policy responsible authority as an associated policy responsible authority. And again, discovery partner principle, which is a lighter role, this only applies to the new EU candidate countries, not to Austria. So in this case, it seems that this partner is not relevant for the program because this is not a responsible authority and they cannot involve the relevant organization in, but they could presumably, I don't know what is their status, but they could be involved as advisory if they have this capacity to be an advisory partner. Otherwise, yeah, no.
Thank you, Kristaps. Next question. Is it acceptable if partner implements the policy improvement at a local level while other partners are addressing a national policy instrument? I want to mention that the local policy is also in line with the project objective. Again, Kristaps, a policy question.
Yes.
I'll hand over to you.
Yes, thanks. Short answer, yes. We don't have any particular limitations of this character. You can have a mix of different policy instruments covered by the partnership. You can have a national. Of course, you have to have at least one operational program. You can have national, local, regional level policy instruments. In this case, it's more the question for you internally when you speak about the project methodology and exchange of good practices. Is this local level knowledge is relevant for the rest of the partnership, which is addressing national level? But again, this depends on the topic of the project. But the short answer is yes. It's completely fine that one partner is coming with a local level policy instrument, while everybody else is coming with a national. But again, you will have to describe how this actually fits the general rationale of your project in terms of addressing particular policy instruments and, of course, the general project objective.
Thank you. Then another question from Helena. The applications submitted have to ensure that at least 4 out of 5 areas are represented in a partnership with at least one project partner. Can one area be represented by only one? So Kristaps, only discovery partners, sorry. So Kristaps.
Yes. Yes, in this case, it can be. Discovery partners are partners. They have a slightly lighter role, but they're still considered partners. They are coming also with partner declarations. So yes, if you are involved in discovery partner, again, 1 or 2 maximum from the EU candidate countries, this is covering this particular geographical area. Yes, it's completely fine.
Kristaps. So a question from Felicia. Can the same pilot action be implemented in all countries? If we transfer the good practice from one of the partners to all countries from the partnership, is the project eligible? So Kristaps, I'll hand over to you again.
Okay, this is going to be probably more complicated. First of all, whether or not you have a pilot action does not concern eligibility. We are not looking at the pilot actions when we are doing eligibility assessment. We are going to only look into the pilots and see how they fit your project rationale when we do the quality assessment. So pilots are not part of eligibility assessment. Then it depends on each particular pilot, each particular case. You can have, let's say, at least only two partners engage in pilot action jointly, one donor, one recipient, and then everybody else is involved through the learning from this pilot implementation. Or you can have actually all partners involved in one joint pilot, for example. It depends really on your case. It can be the fact that you're jointly developing this project, this pilot, and jointly testing it, or it can be also several pilots. Again, this will come actually down to the whole rationale of the project implementation. When we're going to do the quality assessment, we're going to look into each particular case and each particular pilot is specific. What I would like to emphasize here is that in any case, please know that pilot actions are not at the core of the experience exchange. They should not be the main course on your menu. They should only be considered as a dessert. So do not please build your whole project around the pilot action, whether or not it's a joint one or involving all the partners or only a few of them. Pilot actions can be included in application form. You can do the pilot actions from the beginning, or you can ask for the pilot actions after the midterm review. But again, they are additional in specific cases. If you really need to test something and you really plan to implement results if successful in your policy instruments. But please do not consider pilot actions as a core of the whole experience exchange. Normal experience exchange activities should still remain at the core, even if there is no pilot.
Thank you, Kristaps. I like the metaphor on the pilot actions, to consider them as a dessert of the project, not the core action. So another question, let me check, is there a budget question, but no, all about policy. So from Felicia, one more question. Are there any other annexes necessary to submit the project beside the declarations from the portal? So Kristaps, I'll hand over to you again.
Very short answer, no. You only need to submit your full application and include signed declarations. And please make sure that they are correct and that they're also correctly signed, whether it's physical signature or digital.
Thank you. A question from Julia. Can the project lead partner be a local authority instead of a regional authority? Kristaps again.
Yes. Yes, the project lead partner can be regional, local, national authority. The scope of it doesn't really matter in this case. So of course it can be a city or a municipality.
Thank you. Another question from Julia. I have 1, 3, 4 on the way. So what is the best way to justify the implementation of pilot action in a project? Can a pilot action be an innovative practice that needs to be tested in the field? Kristaps again.
Thanks, Julia. A bit complicated question. I would say the best way to justify, of course, like any other activity in the project, you have to justify the relevance to the whole rationale of the project, to relevance to the program, and to the whole learning process. So can it be an innovative practice that needs to be tested? And I would put an emphasis on the word needs here. Again, as I said in my previous response, you should not build your projects around the pilots or something that needs to be tested. You can test something as an addition to everything else you're doing in your project. So please be cautious about building a project around something that needs to be tested. That's the one thing. But in general, of course, you have to justify the relevance of any pilot action for the project, really in terms of, okay, is there innovative practice from one or other regions involved in the partnership? In this particular case, we want to test it, and the necessity to test it stems, okay, from the overall relevance of the activities you're doing, and also is in line of what you want to achieve in terms of your policy improvement. Because again, why do we even do pilot actions in Interreg Europe? Is in order to test something, in most of the cases, something that works in another partner region, test something in our own region, like learning from the donor, you would say, with the aim to implement it later on or mainstream it throughout our policy instrument if the test is successful. So, and this is also the way how you have to justify it, of course. You have to justify that there's interregional characters, so you're doing the pilot action jointly, so at least two partners from at least two countries, that the pilot is durable, that even if it is successful, that you are going to actually implement the results in your policy instrument. Otherwise, there's no need to do the test. And of course, also that is something adding some added value to the overall learning process of the project implementation. Okay, that this is not something standalone, but that implementation of this test of this pilot also brings added value to the learning process, to the whole partnership. But again, as I said previously, pilots can be very complicated or they can be very simple. Each pilot is different, and we are going to be looking at them case by case basis. And you really, in general, have to justify the need for the pilot, because as I said, it is not the core of the project. It can be added. You can have one or more pilots, but then you really have to justify why you're doing those pilots. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Christophs. Another question from Julia: is the advisory partner counting for the geographical coverage? And can the advisory partner receive a budget from the project for its activities? Again, Christophs, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, this is the same as a discovery partner. Yes, again, advisory partner is a partner, so we are counting them for geographical coverage. Can the partner receive the budget? I mean, of course, because if you are a project partner, you are receiving a budget, because if you don't have a budget, there's no way you can even implement any activity. So logically, of course, they are there to do a particular role. They have a particular role to advise the whole partnership, to probably advise them on methodology, how to best select good practices, depends on the project. So of course they have a budget to do activities, they have staff cost, everything. They're like any normal partner, with the exception that they're not addressing policy instrument, but the role is different.
Thank you. So again, question from Julia: how many in-person interregional meetings do you recommend to be held per project semester? So Christophs, again, over to you.
Yes, okay, we don't have any specific recommendation, but let's say what I would recommend is just to be reasonable. Do not plan to do too many in-person meetings. So okay, one, let's say two max would be fine, because in-person meetings, they're demanding. You have to organize study visit, etc. Everybody has to fly in and out. So normally we are not very happy if we see, let's say, 5 or 6 interregional in-person meetings in semester, because it doesn't really look feasible. So in terms of what is the feasible implementation of the project, probably we're looking at 1 or 2. And of course, please do not forget that you can also do a lot of online meetings, like simple management meetings can also be done online. You don't need to go to fly to every country to do just a management meeting or a steering committee meeting. Interregional in-person meetings should really be focused on probably study visits or looking at good practice, something that really has an added value. So you can have, let's say, one in-person interregional meeting in the semester, and then complement it with, let's say, 2 or 3 online meetings, so you can still implement your project. But again, each case can be different. You can justify the need to have more than 2, for example, but normally, if we want to be feasible, I would say 1 or 2. Also depends on the scope. Maybe there's some bilateral meetings, then you have probably more, but again, it depends if you even need bilateral meetings.
Okay, thank you, Christophs. And the final question from Julia: in our project, we planned the identification of good practices in a dedicated semester at the beginning. Is this suitable, or we are obliged to identify good practices throughout the whole core phase duration, 1-2 per semester? So Christophs, again, I'll hand over to you.
You are not obliged to identify good practice throughout the whole core phase. No. You can really focus on identifying good practices at the very beginning, semester 1, 2, 3. You can actually work with the good practices and identify them even at the end of the core phase. It depends. But what I would like to emphasize here is that in the current program, when the core phase is in 3 years, we are expecting to see policy improvements, so the policy changes. That means that most of those cases, the policy improvements are going to be based on good practices identified, are going to be based on the learnings you have gathered. So if you are planning or aiming to have the policy improvements ready by the end of the core phase, then logically you should plan the process of identification of the good practices closer to the beginning of the project. Doesn't mean you have to do everything in semester 1 or 2. You can even do semester 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4. But the idea is that these identified good practices, they have to feed in the learning process, which then at the end feeds into actual policy improvements. So doing the process earlier rather than later would be something that I would advise. But again, you're not obliged in this case. You could work also with this until the end of the core phase. What really doesn't make sense probably is if you would work with the good practice identification in the follow-up phase, because this is already too late in terms of learning and applying these learnings to the policy improvements.
You again, Christophs. A question from Diana. If a few partners in a project decide to have a pilot activity in the preparation phase, do other partners also need to have pilot activities? Christophs?
Yes. No. First of all, nobody needs to have a pilot activity. I would like to also stress it again. There's an option to have one or more pilots, but this is not a requirement. When we're going to do assessment of the project's quality assessment, we are not going to be scoring projects less if they don't have a pilot, or we're going to be scoring projects more if they have a pilot. So just to clarify, maybe also the rationale of the pilots. The second is if you are doing pilot activity with the involvement, let's say, of 2 partners, there is no need for everybody else to do a pilot. You can have a pilot that only involves at least 2 partners in 2 countries. Let's say 1 donor, parting the knowledge, and the second country is recipient. What you have to do is you have to involve the rest of the partnership in sharing the results of the project, of the pilot. You have to explain how the pilot implementation is working, what are the benefits, etc., so that everybody learns from the pilot implementation. But the actual implementation of the pilot, actual testing, can't be done jointly, even in case of just 2 partners, one doing the physical on site and then the other parting knowledge. So there is no need to involve everybody else or to have more pilots.
Thank you, Christophs. Moving on to the next question from Marina. May discovery partners budget for external expertise costs, such as comms events, communication materials, travel costs for stakeholders, exchange of experience, external support? So Camille, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks. To answer the first part of the question, yes, discovery partners can budget costs under external expertise and services cost category. However, Christophs already mentioned earlier that discovery partners have a lighter involvement in the activities. They do not address the policy instruments and they do not have a stakeholder group. So obviously, costs need to reflect the activities planned by the discovery partner. So this means that we could accept some cost and see some costs for involvement of local groups, but this should be very light. This is very much related to the previous question on the activities that can be carried out by discovery partners. So be careful about this aspect. As I said, as such, it's totally possible for a discovery partner to plan costs under external expertise and services. However, the costs should be linked, of course, to the activities planned, and these activities need to be in line with the role of a discovery partner.
Thank you, Camille. Question from Nicola. 7 new countries, can they apply individually or they need to have partners from EU countries? Can we apply like North Macedonia and Albania? So, Kristaps, can you take over that question?
I will shortly answer that you have to have partners from EU countries. You cannot just be working jointly, let's say Macedonia and Albania. We are talking about European level partnerships covering at least 4 out of 5 geographical areas, North, East, South, West, and the candidate countries as defined by the program manual. So this is also eligibility criteria. If you are just partners from Macedonia, Albania, or just partners from Germany and France, you will not be eligible, and you will not even be assessed later on in the quality stage. So please, really look into this big book called Program Manual. You can see it really online or a printed copy, and really closely look at the eligibility criteria. First of all, what is requirements, minimum requirements? You have to have EU countries involved. You have to have balanced partnerships in terms of covering at least 4 out of 5 areas. I hope I answered this question.
Yeah, the balanced partnership, that's the key, let's say, eligibility criteria. A question from Alexandra. Are there any recommendations regarding the composition of the project team of one partner, e.g. project manager, technical expert, financial expert? Is there a limit regarding the number of persons involved? Camille, I'll hand over this question to you.
Thanks. We do not have any specific recommendations for the project team of one partner. This is really up to you, depending also on the resources you can and want to allocate to the project. So yeah, usually we see a project manager or a financial manager, communication manager. These roles are perfectly acceptable, of course. But again, on our side at program level, we do not have any recommendations. It depends on the resources you allocate to the project.
Thank you, Camille. Moving on to the next question from Carolina. Since the travel and accommodation budget comes from the staff costs, it makes it difficult for discovery partners or partners coming from new countries to participate in all transitional activities. So Camille, I'll let you hand over this one.
Yes, thanks, Carolina, for this question. I think it's also a good way to maybe remind / clarify what is happening with travel and accommodation costs for partners. Because indeed the travel and accommodation costs are a flat rate of 15% of the staff costs. This is a simplification method. However, in justified case, it is possible for partners to opt out from the flat rate and budget travel and accommodation costs for the staff members of the organization. So for the partner, in real cost, on a real cost basis. As I said, this needs to be strongly justified. You have the option in the application form to untick the box related to the 15% flat rate and to provide a justification. And we can, of course, understand that for some partners, for instance, for remote partners or partners from new countries, in case travel costs are particularly high, this could be a justification to opt out from the flat rate. However, I would really strongly still encourage you to consider this option. The flat rate for travel and accommodation, as I was saying, is a simplification, a huge one. It makes you avoid keeping every single ticket. It simplifies audit trail. So you are also gaining time by this. So see if the flat rate couldn't be an option. If not, provide a very strong justification in the application form, and you can budget travel cost in a real cost basis.
Thank you, Camille. So yeah, with the flat rate, you avoid all the boring paperwork. But yeah, if not, like, please provide a strong justification otherwise. Moving on to Heidi's question. When describing the work plan, the activities in semester 3, 5, and 6 are the same. Is this strange? It looks like copy-paste. So, Kristaps, I'll let you answer this one.
Thanks a lot, Heidi. Well, while we know that the program is rather standardized in terms of what activities we're funding, what activities are implemented, and the learning activities, they could sometimes be similar. Let's say you have a study visit every semester in a core phase. At the same time, doing a copy paste is something that I would really not advise. Because even if you're planning to do, let's say, a workshop each semester and a study visit each semester, you have to explain what exactly are you going to do in this study visit, because each study visit is going to be different. Each theme of the workshop probably is going to be different. So it's not just a listing of activities. You also have to explain what you're going to do. And this is the best. I mean, if you're planning to do a study visit in, I don't know, Norway in semester 3, and then the second study visit in Poland in semester 4, probably the theme of the study visit is different. The different practices you're going to see there, the theme of the workshop. So it should not be copy paste. It can be standardized. It can be activities that are similar happening throughout the core phase, workshops, stakeholder meetings, etc. But when it comes to the big core interregional learning activities, you have to explain, you provide more detail. So do not copy paste. Do not just provide the same information, because then we will really not see an added value and relevance of these activities if you don't explain what you're doing, even if they're looking the same. But this is a bit more complex maybe. But look in your work plan and see what makes sense in terms of overall learning. So it's not just repeating, doing the same thing every semester. It has to be a gradual process, because at the end of the core phase, you have to reach the policy improvements. So you cannot just repeat what you did in semester 1. You have to do slightly different activities as well.
Thank you, Kristaps. Julia's question, what happens if we now have an indicative budget for the pilot, and if the new city council will decide that implementing this specific pilot is not feasible in the period of project? Camila, I'll hand over to you.
Yes. Well, first of all, we expect you to implement the activities you describe in the application form. So this is, I think, the first thing to underline, because this is important. Then there could be exceptional cases, very exceptional cases, where for some reasons some activities cannot be implemented. We expect this to be very rare, as I was saying, very exceptional. And this would be something to be discussed at that moment. Maybe at this point it's a bit early to enter into the details, but what I can really underline is the fact that we expect you to implement the activities you plan in the application form when the moment the project is approved. Then we, during the project implementation, we are also carefully monitoring your spending, the project spending. And in case you were lagging behind, or you wouldn't implement some activities planned, a discussion would happen between the joint secretariat and the project on whether the fund needs to be returned to the program, for instance. But at application stage, it's a bit complicated to imagine this. And to enter into specific details related to the implementation of the project. So yeah, I would repeat again that if you plan some activities in the application form, we expect you to be able to implement them when the project will be approved.
Thank you, Camille. Another question, I think from Heidi. When describing the work plan per semester, the number of good practices identified needs to be filled in. Can you explain more on what this is? Kristaps, I'll hand over to you.
I'm not sure if I completely understand the question. I would just want to emphasize that yes, we are requiring to see the number of good practices you want to identify per semester. I mean, this is one of the indicators, and this is very straightforward. I mean, you're gonna be working on identification of good practices, and most likely it's going to be, let's say, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of good practices you can identify in each semester. So you just put this indicative number. And we want to see this. If I understood the question correctly, I mean, the identification of good practices is one of the core activities of the project. So for sure, you're gonna have a certain number of practices identified, which are gonna be validated by us, Joint Secretariat, and also maybe by the thematic experts if they go to the good practice database. But these are details for the later.
Thank you, Kristaps. Next question comes from Alessandro. Is it fine to adapt the declaration template, leaving only the box related to partner in the partner declaration and the box for the Associated Policy Authority declaration in Associated Policy Authority declaration without changing the wording and contents? Kristaps, again, a question for you.
If I'm not mistaken, it's okay to do this, but you cannot change the contents of what's in. But I mean, in general, avoid doing any kind of work with the declarations. Just make sure that you sign them and the correct information is provided. Yes, that's my short comment. Maybe Camille, you want to comment?
I would just underline that it's the correctness of the declarations is an important eligibility criteria. So yeah, I would recommend you, first of all, you need to use the program template and yeah, not to change it, especially not wording and contents. But yeah, I would just make sure that it's properly filled and signed.
Thank you. Another question coming from Alessandro. Is the participation of one university as a partner in a collaboration with the authority responsible for the policy instrument justified on the basis of consolidated collaboration in the specific policy field? Is there any minimum level of involvement in the policy improvement to be respected? So, Kristaps, this one is for you.
Okay. First of all, in general, what we would advise in any case, if that the policy, the authority that's in charge of the policy instrument is coming as a partner. In this case, I see that, for example, this is university coming in as a partner and involving responsible policy authority as an APA, so Associated Policy Authority. So I mean, of course, it can be done. We have many cases where, for example, universities are partners and then they're involving the relevant policy authority as an APA. But in all these cases, please do not forget that also the policy relevance of this university has to be justified in application form. And this is in many cases a weak spot, that you have an APA, you are coming as a university or a research institute or as an NGO, but then we sometimes do not see how you as a university, you are also policy relevant. Do you have a specific role in implementation or monitoring, etc., of this policy instrument, even if you're not in charge of the policy instrument? So you really have to justify your policy relevance, even in all these cases. And is there any minimum level of involvement in a policy instrument to be respected? I'm not sure if I really understand the question. If you are coming as a partner, we expect you to address the policy instrument. We expect you to already write down an application stage what exact kind of change you want to achieve. Either you want to implement new projects, you do management change, revision of the policy instrument. So in order to achieve at least one of these types of changes, you have to be working together closely with the managing authority, in this case, your Associated Policy Authority. You have to involve them for sure in stakeholder group meetings. You have to bring them to the services, etc. You have to be very closely working together in order to achieve what you have promised in application phase, in order to achieve the policy improvements, even if you are not, as a partner, the responsible authority for the policy instrument. So there is no minimum or maximum level. The whole idea is that you are coming in as a partner, whether or not you are a managing authority. Your aim is to address the policy instrument, to improve it by the end of the core phase. So you will be working with stakeholders and main people involved who actually have a leverage on the policy instrument, and you will have to have a particular role, as I said in a previous my comment, particular policy relevance to actually be able to influence this process. Again, associated policy authorities are not just providers of letters of support. They have to be involved, even very particularly, and we can be monitoring their involvement closely when it comes to each particular progress report. I hope I answered this. I see more questions in one.
Thank you, Kristaps. Moving on to the next question from David. Can the individual partners also budget external costs for the work at local level, e.g. for moderating the stakeholder process or carrying out regional analysis and case studies? So Camille, I'll hand over to you.
I would be very short. Yes, partners can budget these costs, of course, if these activities are planned and described. So yes, this is possible.
Thank you. Then another question on the budget from Heidi. Can the staff cost be a round figure, or does it need to be the exact figure? So Camille, I'll hand over to you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this question. We of course recommend you to budget cost as close as possible to the reality. Also because, as I was saying before, we are also monitoring your spending rate during the project lifetime. I saw that there would be a question on the spending plan a bit later, so I'll get back to this at that moment. But of course, here in this specific case, the rounding doesn't look outrageous, so this would be perfectly acceptable that there is a rounding in this case. Of course, again, try to be as close as possible to the reality, but this is, of course, an estimation at this stage, at application stage, so rounding of 1,500 euro should be fine.
Thank you, Camille. Then a question from Sovche. If in one project a local regional authority addressing one policy instrument participates as a partner, would it be possible for the NGO from the same region to be involved in the partnership as a partner who will have project activities related to the same policy instrument? Kristaps, one more for you.
Yes. Normally, yes. So when you have a relevant organization, so the managing authority of a particular policy instrument involved as a partner from one region, you can have a second partner from the same region, NGO, university, cluster organization, whatever. Of course, if they're also policy relevant for the topic and for the policy instrument. So you can have two partners from the same region addressing the same policy instrument. But in this case, it's very important that you have the managing authority of the policy instrument involved as a partner. So NGO comes, let's say, in addition. They are doing the work, they're helping it. Depends on the case, depends on the topic addressed. The idea is that they jointly are addressing the policy instrument. They're both partners. But only one of them is actually the real managing authority. So this kind of arrangement is completely fine with us. This is actually something that we recommend in every case, to have primarily the policy responsible authority involved as a partner. This is always much easier because they are the ones in charge of the policy instrument. They are the ones who can actually implement the changes.
Thank you, Kristaps. So we're coming to the end of the questions. Another question from Julia. She says, sorry for many questions. No worries, Julia. We are here to answer you and to help you if we can. So she says, if I understood correctly, the pilot action must be implemented by at least two partners in two different countries. So it's not possible to have only one partner implementing the pilot action in their country. Kristaps, again.
Yes, thanks, Julia. I will again try to clarify the nature of the pilot actions. So yes, what we say, and also it's also very, very clear in program manual, is that pilot actions have to be jointly developed and implemented by at least 2 partners from 2 different countries. This is very important to note. So it cannot be just one country, one region doing the pilot on its own. But when it comes to the actual implementation and the testing, you have at least these 2 partners. The donor, the one who is sharing the good practices, and the one actually who is doing the testing work. So the testing might happen only in one region, the actual physical testing, but still the second partner is involved in the pilot implementation and development, since they are the ones really taking, really participating in imparting the knowledge and helping to do the testing. So, for example, if you give an example, very, very simple, let's say you want to install small scale electric chargers for I don't know, public vehicles in your region, and you're taking this good practice, let's say from the city in Malta. So you in your city, you are the one actually putting down the station and doing the testing, but the city in Malta are the ones who are actually also closely involved in the project because they are in your pilot, because they are providing the knowledge, they are providing you all the information that you need to do the testing. So this is what the joint development, the joint character of the pilot implies. But actually the physical testing, let's say, putting down the test in place can happen in one region, but still you have to do it jointly. And I remind you that even if only 2 partners in the partnership are involved in the pilot, they still have to share the knowledge, share the experience with the rest of the partnership. So the rest of the partnership is also learning. The pilots have to be integral part of the learning process. They could not be just standalone activities. So they have to make sense in the overall flow of knowledge exchange in the project implementation.
Thank you, Kristaps. And the final questions, one from Alessandro. Is the organization of activities promoting learning both among partners and for the wider stakeholders in other regions eligible and appreciated? Should we rely primarily on the IE policy learning platform, Interreg Europe policy learning platform? So, Kristaps, another one for you.
Well, first of all, the Interreg Europe is a program for capacity building of organizations involved primarily. So for the partner organizations involved, so your capacity in a policy making, a policy improvement process. Secondary, of course, it's also capacity building for your stakeholders involved on the ground in each particular region, each particular city, where you have the stakeholders. So it's capacity building of all these organizations. Then, if we look beyond the partnership, if you look beyond the stakeholders, you have communication activities. You can inform about your project, inform about your good practices, etc., through your communication activities. Then each case with these handbooks, etc., is difficult and is different and can sometimes be difficult because really, if you want to do a handbook or online course, then you really have to explain and justify the added value of this. Because again, primarily it's a capacity building of the partnership and a capacity building of the stakeholders. Doing something in order just to have a communication activity, having let's say major cost for this will probably not be very clear for us. So be very careful with these kind of activities. And again, this is not a program that does trainings. We are not there to fund trainings for students, etc. So again, please be very careful with these kind of activities that go beyond standard communication and are something more. So you could have, let's say, a good practice handbook. We have had these cases, but then again, why do we need this particular handbook if you already have, exactly as you say, Interreg Europe policy learning platform and good practice database there? So again, you have to explain why exactly you would need this. So the platform is there for it. The platform is there for the sharing of the best good practices, and you can rely on it and you can use it. And this is also the tool that we provide as a program. So again, be specific when you're describing any kind of these communication activities to the wider audience beyond the project. Why exactly you would need this and why it's really relevant for the project.
Thank you, Kristaps. And now the final question of today's session. Coming from David, is the spending plan binding? For example, if I have planned costs for a joint survey in the second semester, but these costs will only be incurred in the third one. For example, an invoice arrives too late. So Camille, final question goes to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, David, for this question, because it's also an important element. And it allows me to also make a few reminders. The spending plan is an important element of your budget. The reason for this is that we will carefully monitor your spending rates during the project implementation. You will report costs every semester, and of course, your spending rates, your actual spending rate compared to what you plan in the application form will be checked and assessed, and we will ask you for some justifications when you deviate from this spending plan. This is why it's important that you plan it carefully as much as possible at this stage, because it will also simplify your life later on during the project implementation, to have a spending plan that was well thought and as close as the reality as possible. Of course, we understand at this stage that this is also an estimation, that there might be changes happening during the project implementation, but try to really think right now carefully about the spending plan. And the second part of your question is interesting, because, for instance, if you already foresee that some costs will be incurred and the invoices will be paid in another semester, even though you implemented the activities, as you said, in semester 2, but you know that the cost will be incurred in semester 3, you should, as much as possible, try to plan this cost in the right semester. So here, if it's already clear that the cost will be incurred in the third semester, you should plan them in the third semester. Then, of course, there is the reality of the project implementation. You will probably face maybe invoice arriving a bit too late. This is not huge issue. You will always have the chance to justify why there is small variations from the spending plan. So this is not an issue at all, and it's not binding as such. But as much as possible, try to think already now what you for the things that are clear. For instance, when it comes to staff costs, if you know that in your organization the staff costs are paid the month after, try to take this into consideration as much as possible at this stage when you're preparing your spending plan. And then when it comes to project implementation, deviations will occur, and they can be justified, and they will be accepted.
Thank you, Camille, for this elaborate answer on the spending plan. Thank you very much, Camille and Christops, for answering all of the questions and for giving elaborate answers to all of the questions. I'm positive that this will lead to much improved applications at this stage. So yeah, the third call, additional questions, you have a website where you have an frequent message section on the website and ask a question form. Then again, we would like to also ask you to evaluate the session. We will have like a little survey for all the participants. Please give us feedback so we can improve and better organize for the future session, for the future events. So yeah, I'll just give a minute of you to give us the feedback. Then the second part of the session is a little bit on the assistance. So please, if you need any assistance for the future applications, for the future calls, you can always find a lot of resources on our website. So when you go to tab, look for funding, Here you will find a lot of useful links. So for example, you can check your project relevance, you can get inspired and search approved projects and project ideas. You can filter them either by country or by the topic. Of course, you can share your project idea and find partners. And of course, the most important link for you is to apply for the call. I must remind you again, the call closes next Friday at 12 o'clock at noon Paris or Central Europe time. So, and here in the slide, you can find the link to apply for the call as well. Of course, we organized other events. This is the final Q&A online session. The recordings will be available, but you can also find recordings from other sessions. We had 3 before this one on our website. So as you can see, we had series of 4 webinars. We have also tutorial videos combined with the live Q&As. So as you can see here, we had a session on building a successful partnership, on project methodology, of course, on the finance and on project communication. So yeah, I would like to thank you all for participating in today's session. I'd like to thank you all of my colleagues, especially the comms team for organizing this session, and of course the speakers, Kristaps and Camille, for providing all the answers. And on behalf of Interreg Europe, to all the applicants, to all the participants today, wish you all the best with your applications, and hope to see you in one of the future webinars and events organized by Interreg Europe. Thank you and bye-bye.